The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Good morning and welcome to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host and producer, Kristina Lou, along with my co-host, Otto Lowe's. Otto's longtime volunteer, supporter, friend. Got the award for founder of Project Independence. We have to add that to your whole repertoire over here. But Otto, today we are talking about a topic that is certainly coincides with the mission of Project Independence, and it's all about aging in place. And we are joined by Jessica Masef, who's the Director of Marketing over at Senior Advisor Solutions. And we're just talking about how to talk about this too with your loved ones. If you're, if you are the senior, if you are the caregiver, how to have these kind of conversations, Medicaid planning. I mean, all these things to ensure aging in place and safely and independent and just an overall quality of life. So thank you for joining us,
Thank you
Jessica.
so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Well, let's start from the basics. What is Senior Advisor Solutions?
Yeah, so Senior Advisor Solutions is a boutique Medicaid application company. We assist many professionals with their Medicaid applications, or families come directly to us. But we help lawyers, we help home care agencies get people on Medicaid. It's just two of us, myself and Paula Goodstein, the founder, and we work very intimately with the families during this process because it's not only about financial eligibility, but also clinical eligibility, which we'll talk a little bit about more. So it's a very intimate process that we handhold.
Yeah,
through.
well, you know what? We certainly know, Otto could vouch. Project Independence itself is a tiny little organization too, and I think that those boutique kind of experiences too, especially when you're talking about something so difficult, like aging in place and figuring out these things that are just, can be quite overwhelming. Having that kind of intimate relationship with someone, I certainly know for myself, is beneficial.
Well, the magic word you use, planning. Everybody knows about wills and healthcare proxies and power of attorney, and realize that those are important, and a lot of people actually do that. But then when it comes beyond that, like if something were to happen, now what? Where do I end up? Where am I in life?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I afford to do it?
Right.
Can I afford to do it? And I don't think you can plan for everything. There's just too many variables.
Definitely not. Unfortunately, a lot of people do come to us during a crisis.
Yeah.
And we always tell people, there are really only 3 ways to get home care in this country. So you could privately pay a home care agency, and a home care agency charges about $35. I would say that's the average, give or take a few dollars, plus or minus. You could have bought a long-term care policy years ago. And even if you buy a long-term care policy, there's no guarantee it's going to cover the full cost of care. Or you can go on Medicaid. And, those are really the 3 options, like I said, in this country. And like I said, even with the long-term care policy, you can do both. You can have a long-term care policy, and Medicaid is always the last payor, meaning you would exhaust the long-term care policy, and then Medicaid would pick up whatever,
So long-term care, like when you qualify, and we'll get into a little more later, I guess, but it's assets and income resources that come into play.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is that long-term care insurance comes into play also. What is it that comes into play? Like most policies have, this is what you're going to get a day.
Right.
Is that?
That is. I mean, we worked with clients who get like $350 a day. So if my math is not great, but that's about 10 hours of care. If it's $35, they get $350 a day. We did have a client reach out to us, and we turned them away because they said they had the most incredible long-term care policy that was covering the 24 hours of care for both parents. We said there is really nothing we could do for you. You hit the jackpot, honestly, and we were so happy for them. I mean, listen, that's a success.
Goal, right?
That's the goal.
Right.
So, but that's part of what we do. with Senior Advisor Solutions, we triage the situation right away. So when people call us, we immediately start to dig into, you mentioned income and assets. So that's how we always like to describe Medicaid. I like to describe it as buckets, income and assets, and they are looking at those two buckets. And I talk to the clients about what goes into each bucket. For example, I think a lot of people think like IRAs would go into their asset bucket, but it actually goes into their income bucket. And I can talk a little bit more about that as well.
A question on that one. Is it based on what is your required minimum distribution?
Yes.
So whatever that is what gets counted as income?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
And you have to be in a position where it's a payout thing.
Yes, if you're under the age that you have to start taking those distributions, New York State passed a law, I believe in January, where you could take as little as like $10 a month. But in order to qualify for Medicaid, you do have the IRAs do have to be in payout status.
Right. Okay.
So, but that is what we talk about. So we talk about, well, what's your monthly income? So what's your Social Security? What's your pension? Are you getting distributions? So we talk about all of that. And if you're over the Medicaid limit, which is approximately $1,800 in income, there's something we set up called a pooled income trust.
$1,800 a month.
Approximately. I believe it's $1,836. I have to get I should know
what's 12 times 18?
You know what? We're going to need Dan to buzz in with those math skills he was showing us
But
earlier.
it's not much. It's not much.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And so New York State recognizes that, and they said, to live here, you really can't live off of $1,800 a month. So what do you do if you're over the limit? So Medicaid actually is very nice and gives you a credit for a few things. So they give you a credit of $202 for your Medicare.
Per month.
And they give you a credit if you're paying for your supplemental insurance, such as AARP.
Well, that's another question. Suppose you have a company that you work for who gives you money towards your insurance. And you still pay for it, but they give you a flat amount as part of the retirement pension. Does that get counted as income?
If your company is paying for it, no. If your company is paying for your health insurance, no. But if you are paying for like your supplemental, like your AARP, you get your credit. It's like a credit.
Well, they contribute towards.
Then that's not considered.
That's not considered as
part
income.
of the income, and the AARP is not considered as part of income. It's just like a credit.
Right.
They give you a credit, so they say, okay, you could keep a little bit more of your monthly income. So I always give this example. Let's say you make $3,500 a month. You have a pension and you have your Social Security, and you make $3,500 a month, and Medicaid says you can keep, quote unquote, $1,800, and you get a $202 credit. We'll round up $200. So now you're at $2,000. And then you pay, let's say, $500. I like even numbers because my math is not great. And then you pay $500 for your AARP. So that brings you to $2,500. So you are $1,000 over the Medicaid limit right now because, again, you got all these really beautiful credits. So what do you do? So there are two options. So the first option, and this happened before pooled income trust, you could pay $1,000 back to Medicaid. You can pay it as like a copay, and the idea is that you pay the $1,000 and you get all of this aid, home care services. Well, I don't think people really like that, to pay $1,000, and I don't think they would like to pay even more back. So there's something called a pooled income trust. And a pooled income trust, what happens is all of your money gets deposited into your checking account just like it does every single month. So that $3,500 goes into your checking account just like it does every month. The difference is the pooled income trust now will take $1,000 or draw $1,000, which is your excess income or your spend down, and put it into a different account. So it's essentially just another checking account. And what does that account do? It pays any expenses for the applicant, meaning the person who is applying for Medicaid, they can send their mortgage, they can send their electric bill, they can send their cable bill. anything for the applicant to remain in the home can be paid through the pooled income trust. We did have a client ask if their parent could buy them a car. The applicant's child wanted a car, and I said, not from the pooled income trust. The pooled income trust has to be anything for the applicant.
Well, how much, let's go use a round number. Suppose somebody has $8,000 a month.
Yeah.
Can you put all the excess into a pool?
So it's a yes and no question. And we have turned clients away if they have too much excess income, and I'll tell you why. You have to ensure that you can spend down that money every month.
Right.
So if your mortgage is $6,000, which it very well could be on Long Island, and you have, $1,000 electric bill, which I'm embarrassed to say was my electric bill with the air conditioning, and you have your cable and your phone and then the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. But if you are unable to meet that spend down every month, then Medicaid is really not I wouldn't say it's not an option, but it's maybe not the most prudent option, because you don't want that money to sit in the pool trust and accumulate when you could be spending that money on yourself. Right. So, so part of that initial call with us is really digging. Is
that a reality? In other words, I'm saying.
Yeah, we've had that. We've had clients. I do remember we had someone that we had a consult with. I think they were making close to $11,000 a month, and their mortgage was paid off, and they didn't really have expenses, which is great. Listen, I hope we all have that problem. Like, again, with the people who had the long-term care policy. But, the reality is not everybody does have that problem. Another thing that you could do with the excess income is, let's say, and we'll talk a little bit about this at some point, is, you apply for Medicaid and there are a series of clinical evaluations to determine how much home care you get. Let's say you don't get enough home care, like you have a magic number in your head. That's not what the state gives you, which is fine, and you have that excess income you could then privately pay. You could use that money, that pooled income trust money, to pay. So again, that's part of that initial call, is really figuring out, what your expenses are. Would you be able to meet the spend down? And, if you can meet the spend down, great. If you can't, then maybe just privately paying is a better option.
See, as I see it, there's three ways you can get involved with something like this. One is, like you said, urgent. All of a sudden there's a major problem. The second is you're getting discharged from a hospital, so now all of a sudden you have to think about it. And the third one is you're fortunate enough not to have the problem right now. So, all of them have, I think they have different tracks that you would go down.
They definitely do have different tracks. So I think you bring up a very good point. So there's three types of Medicaid that you could apply for, like for home care, and there's chronic Medicaid, which I don't think we're really going to talk about today, because we also believe our whole brand is aging in place. So our slogan is expert Medicaid planning, confident aging in place. So we really believe and strongly advocate for people remaining in their home. So the chronic Medicaid is for nursing home, and that's not something anyone really wants to think about or plans for. And that has a 5-year financial look back. And then there are like two types of community Medicaid. There's traditional community Medicaid, and then there's immediate needs Medicaid. So like the name implies, with immediate needs, I'll start with immediate needs. The clinical eligibility and the financial eligibility are looked at simultaneously. So there's additional forms that are submitted with the traditional community Medicaid application to expedite that application. And this type of application we use or apply for people who are coming out of a rehab or who have spent down all of their money. So, but mostly it's for people, it's immediate. We always never like to abuse the system. We reserve immediate needs Medicaid for people who are in a rehab, who really need a discharge plan, and we will apply for immediate needs Medicaid. the turnaround time is a lot quicker. It's about from the time we submit the application to the time it's approved, it's like between 45 and 60 days versus like 90 days
And
with
this is
traditional.
for in-home.
This is for, yes,
Yeah,
this
for
is
the
to
immediate
get
needs,
for the
yeah, for
immediate
home.
needs
Right.
to get the home care. So it's really important, if you are in a rehab and you start to think about like what the next steps are, like, okay, we get a lot of calls like mom lived independently and was totally fine, fell, had a fracture, and now what? And so that's when they call
Right.
us. And then, like I said, there's traditional community Medicaid, which takes longer. It takes about 90 days to get from the time it's submitted to the time it's approved. And that it also yields like less hours than immediate needs. Immediate needs will yield a much higher level of care because these people who are applying for it are really desperate for the care and really do require a high level of care.
So then the other one, the third one, is that you do not have the need right now. People, should you be thinking about planning?
It's a really good question. So we talked a little bit about the buckets, the income and the assets, but there's also a clinical piece to it. So the clinical piece to this is that you need to have difficulty with your activities of
Right.
daily living. So what is that? Dressing, bathing, showering, ambulating to an,
6 of them.
yes. So excellent. I think you got it.
He's a pro.
You are a pro. So so that you have to demonstrate difficulty in 3 activities of daily living to qualify
3.
clinically. 3.
Okay.
But if
Cool.
you have Alzheimer's, it's only 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, I don't hold that thought
Yeah.
because we need to take a break. After the break, we will continue talking with Jessica Masef, who's the Director of Marketing over at Senior Advisor Solutions, all about Medicaid, aging in place, real talk for families. You're listening to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Kristina Liu, along with my co-host, Otto Los, and we're diving right back in with Jessica Masef, who's the Director of Marketing at Senior Advisor Solutions, about Medicaid, aging in place, and all that stuff.
All that good stuff.
All that good stuff. So before the break, Otto, I know you had some long-term care insurance you were...
Yeah, well, long-term care insurance, again, you need to have some ADL problems or you're not going to get it.
Right.
And I think those are things that people don't always understand either.
Yeah.
That of those 6 things are like gospel.
They are. They really are.
With
So-
everybody.
It's true. And, to answer your question, I think that's how this all started. Like, can you plan for this? Yeah. And I said yes and no. And the reason I say yes and no is, like I said, a lot of people come to us during a crisis. And it's often after, like, a fall, a hospitalization, a rehab stay. But when you really dig deep with the families, you hear that they were experiencing some difficulty before this, tragedy, like the fall or the UTI or something like that. They were forgetting to take medication. They were tripping and falling. I'm not really sure if they were showering, if mom and dad were showering, or performing
Early
those
onset
ADLs.
dementia stuff.
That exactly. Or so that's why it's always good to maybe start with like the traditional community Medicaid. Once you start to see that there are difficulties in 3 of those ADLs or 2 with the Alzheimer's diagnosis, and having someone there, having an aide at the home, helping with those ADLs and supervising them and being there so that you can prevent, the fall or the UTI or something tragic that ends the person up in a rehab, which then would necessitate the immediate needs. So I say yes and no because I think it's important to start to be on alert
Right.
with your, aging loved one for those ADL skills. Start to think about them, start to see if they're having difficulty, and then you could really start the conversation with your aging loved one like, hey, maybe it's time to start the process, either privately paying or through Medicaid. So that's why I said yes and no.
Yeah, we've been kind of like, again, I think there's two pieces to the puzzle. One of them is how do you pay for in-home care? And the other one is how do you get in-home care? Which is another world all to itself, I think.
Yes. We, another thing that we do at Senior Advisor Solutions is we vet many home care agencies. So they have to have our senior advisor stamp of approval for us to even recommend them as a home care agency. We need to know that they're responsive, they really listen to the families, and that they're always like available to the families before we hand off like a referral to them. They need to have our same ethos, again, like being available to families, hand-holding with the families, because like I said, it is a very intimate process. And it is very interesting because there's an expression, I'm sure you've heard it here, but like once a man, twice a baby. And with your little child, right, you people will post on Facebook, I'm looking for a nanny, and you go through like an extensive interview process, and you really vet these people. But when you have an aging loved one, sometimes you just pick a home care agency. And they just, I know, a home care agency said that to me, and I didn't even think about that. But it's really true. I mean,
it's a business.
Yeah.
It's a business.
Yeah.
And it's important to vet it,
It's important to vet it. And, we want to ensure that our clients are with home care agencies that, like I said, just are responsive. And, I know that they're vetting all of their aides and, And
Now,
so it's very important to us.
Would you get involved with, I'm assuming, Medicaid agencies, but what about non-Medicaid agencies? Do you go down that track, or is it usually revolved around Medicaid?
It's we would only refer to agencies that take Medicaid as a form of payment. Non-Medicaid agencies could refer to us when the family has
private pay
and they've run out of money.
Right.
That would be like a referral we would get, but it happens once in a while. I mean, we've had a few clients where we did do the immediate needs because they exhausted all of their money on private hire. And I'm just thinking of one particular client. They did have a catastrophic insurance policy. But it didn't pay for everything, and they spent all of mom's money on private hire, and they ran out of money, and there was really no other choice but Medicaid at that point.
So a reality is that if you know ahead of time that you're private pay, then Senior Advisor Solutions isn't really the place you should go.
If you can afford to sustain private pay,
right,
then
you have other paths you can
definitely
go down. Right.
Some people, most of our clients are, I would say, upper middle class people who have amassed a certain amount of wealth in their life, not billions,
right.
But they see that the money is running out. I mean, you could save your whole life and
go fast.
It goes really fast,
Oh,
$1 million is not what it used to be, right? You see on social media what I thought $1 million as a kid was, and you see these mansions, and what it really is not much. And honestly, the same goes for home care. $1 million.
I grew up in a different atmosphere altogether. When I was 17,
so I'm really shocked.
When I was 17 years old, we used to think if you could make $100 a week, you're going to do pretty good.
Right.
All right. So you know where that goes.
Yeah. Well, I joke with my clients all the time. I say, listen, honestly, I hate getting my gas filled up. I mean, everything's expensive now. And the same goes for home care. And, again, this is a program. It's an incredible program. And if you have amassed a certain amount of wealth, it is sort of an asset protection program, too, because there comes a point where you just are going to spend all the money, whether that be in an assisted living, which we didn't really talk about, but there are some assisted livings on Long Island that do take Medicaid as a type of payment. but you're going to spend it on aids or assisted living and.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the goal for everybody, including myself and my family, is to be able to be home. But I'm also a realist, having been through lots of people, that there comes a certain time where you really need on 24/7 care by people who really know what they're doing, not just one person. And you know, there are times where you do have to wind up in whatever you want to call it, skilled nursing facility.
Right.
You know, but it still comes down to being a nursing home.
Yes,
you know?
yes. And but you know, that's part of the, you know, you asked that question, I think, and the planning, like, can you plan? The answer is kind of no, you know, a lot, but if you start with the community Medicaid, and then you need a higher level of care, you know, we could always advocate for more hours, which is something we do, to prevent the nursing home. The nursing home is, you know, to your point, it's really the last resort, and you know, it's really only if that's the only place and you need skilled nursing that you would go. But if you could do these things and get people in the home and have, you know, take care of it, you know, there's no crystal ball. That's another thing I tell. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but it's very important to have someone, you know, in the home helping you to prevent all of these accidents that end people up.
I mean, the hope would be, frankly, that you apply and you never need it.
Right.
That could happen.
Well, you would get denied if you don't have difficulty in those activities of daily living.
Right, you need to have the ADL.
So this is not like buying insurance that you say, oh, I need it in 3 or 4 years.
No.
That's an important point, by the way.
Right, you can't just say, you know what? I feel like applying for Medicaid today.
Yeah, right.
Today is the day.
That's a very important point, because I have conversations with people, and you kind of look at it like, well, I ought to apply.
Right, just in case I need it in the future.
But what you're saying is, don't bother, because if you don't have a need now.
Right. If you have, that's why, again, I think an important conversation is talking about those activities of daily living and seeing if your loved one is exhibiting any sort of difficulty. And, you know, are they doing things independently? Is it completely independent? Or do they really need assistance with that? Do they need reminders? Do they need prompts and cues? You know, and start to really think about these activities of daily living and how independent your loved one is actually performing those skills. And if they really are having difficulty, then it is time to, you know, consult with a professional and really drill down and see if just, you know, if Medicaid is the right, you know, path.
Yeah, there's a lot of paths that stuff can happen and go down, but unfortunately dementia is one that's pretty big.
Yeah.
And people can get diagnosed, not that they're looking to get diagnosed, but for mild cognitive impairment in advance. Is that considered a clinical?
Yes. But you still need to demonstrate two difficulties.
Right. With the ADLs.
With the ADLs.
So
the ADLs are the...
that thing goes like who knows.
Right.
Like you said, the crystal ball.
No one has it.
Doesn't work for dementia.
No, it doesn't. But that is, you know, when people reach out oftentimes where mom has dementia, she's very independent, but she's not taking her medicine.
Right.
You know, she's not dressing herself appropriately. She's not remembering to shower. So then once you really drill down and use the ADLs as kind of the framework, you could really start to assess if Medicaid is the right.
And wants to drive and shouldn't.
Exactly. So, yeah. But that's how you could kind of plan. I think when you have those ADLs in your mind, you can start to plan a little bit, or it plants a seed in your head to know what to look out for.
And I think we keep throwing the term ADL around.
Oh, yeah.
And for our listeners who might not know, can you just go over what the ADLs are?
Activities of daily living. So what is that? Dressing yourself. Dressing your upper body, dressing your lower body. Showering. Now I'm like blanking, of course. Toileting, ambulating. So getting around the house, transferring from out of the bed, you know, to the shower, dressing, bathing, showering.
There's 6 more. What is it?
There's one more.
Feeding yourself.
Feeding yourself, yes, right. Exactly. I actually just made a diagram the other day with all of that. There's also like your IADLs.
That's what's that?
So those are like medication management.
Oh, okay.
like cooking for yourself, like light housekeeping.
Is that a category, actually?
It's not one of the 6. It's like a separate category of
IADL?
IADLs. And now, of course, I'm blanking on what the I stands for. I don't remember. I have to look it up.
I've never heard that.
Intelligent.
I have to look that up. During our next break, I'm going to look it up because I did just make a sheet about it. But, those are all some of the things that they do look at. They really
and I think, like, that's always important. I wanted our listeners to hear that because, it's so important to start keeping an eye on those things.
Yes.
Because it's not always like it's like these little things that all of a sudden can end up being,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. It's... Again, most people come to us during the catastrophic event, but again, if you start to pick up on the signs that something, is going on with the ADLs or the IADLs, it is time to like have a conversation.
Yeah,
Instrumental.
Oh, instrumental. There we go.
That was thanks to Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for that.
There you go. Instrumental IADL.
Your point was, I think, very important, and that is to ponder. If you're not in a need at this instant, but you really should think about the track that you're going to go down.
Yes.
And
especially that you're I like Paula from The Office also just texted an instrumental. So
There
Paula
you
is
go.
listening to us.
Thank you.
Paula from my office is listening. But that's what I do think, and that's what we were saying too, Otto, to your point, is like it's so important to just be aware, and I think a lot of times, this probably does happen, and you can speak to this, that you're noticing this in your loved one. The person who's going through it might not be recognizing that they're having these kind of difficulties.
Yes. And I think it's also very hard, which I tell my clients, going back to the once a man, twice a baby, when you're a child of a aging parent, it's very hard to make that switch from being parenting to, I don't want to say from being parented to I don't want to say parenting, but I always tell like driving the ship. Your aging loved one has to be part of the discussion. They have to know what's going on and understand the process, but sometimes you really do have to push their hands a little bit. And
I think one of the problems is that initially when people start with mild cognitive impairment, you can talk about it. But then you get to a certain point where the reasoning part of it isn't in the equation anymore. And that becomes more complicated.
Definitely.
In the beginning, as I've witnessed, people get it and they understand. But then as it goes a little bit more, I don't know if denial's the right word, but you just don't see it anymore. Because that's how your mind is working.
Definitely. And listen, you don't want to give up your independence, which I really do understand. And what I tell everyone is we all need help, whether it's, you can't do it all. You can't cook, clean. I need help. I have a housekeeper once a week, right? And it's not the same thing, but I have young kids and we have to carpool and we have to rely on other people. So there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with getting help. And I think trying to switch your mindset that we're not taking away your independence. In fact, these home health aides that are coming to help you are actually helping keep you in the home and remain independent, and it's not to take away the independence.
I think
I also think that the person who, if there was another person involved, who is the non-patient, if you will, tries to be the caregiver, and they need help. All right? So that it's two people need help, or they're going to have two people there for the two people have a problem.
Yes.
The number just keeps growing.
It's true. And it's very hard, I think, also to care for your loved one,
It is.
It's hard to care for your parent, or your spouse. I always give this example, and it's not the same, but it's a little bit the same. My dad was a driver's ed teacher, actually, and he taught me how to drive. I failed the road test 3 times, and I had to retake it because I let my license expire. So I always give that example because it's very hard. He's a great driver's ed teacher. He's a special ed teacher. He's a driver's ed teacher. He's all these wonderful things, but he can't be that for me. And you can't be that for your loved one as much as you want to, and as much as you have all the right intentions, it really is much easier to get help elsewhere because it's very hard.
I have adult children in your brackets, all right, and I'm very clear with them about the fact that I don't want you, taking care of me. In personal ways, all right?
Yeah.
That's not my goal in life, all right? So if that gets to that point, then you get somebody, all right?
100%.
Yeah, not
100%.
me, not you or whoever.
I think it's important to have those conversations.
And they know, frankly, because I've been so engaged with this program that I'm a big proponent of talk to people about this is their life, man. It doesn't change. It's not going to get any better. know?
Well, that's a great point, Otto, because in the next segment, there's a wonderful article on their website about how to talk to aging loved ones about needing more help at home and just how to kind of have those conversations. So we'll dive into that. It was a great segue. After the break, we will continue talking with Jessica Masef, who's the Director of Marketing over at Senior Advisor Solutions, all about aging in place, real talk for families. You're listening to Project Independence in You on LIU Public Radio.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast, and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. You know, those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Project Independence in You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Kristina Liu, along with my very chatty co-host who's yapping during the break, Otto Los. And we are jumping right back in with Jessica Masef, who's the Director of Marketing over at Senior Advisor Solutions. And we are talking about aging in place, how to have those conversations, Medicaid. We're covering a lot of bases to help, you age in place or your loved one. And before the break, I was mentioning doing research. It was a wonderful article because I love a good guideline, and you had put this on there about how to talk to aging loved ones about needing more help in the home. So if we could I thought it would be like a good way for our listeners just to go over it.
Sure. So I always give this example. If you've ever seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding,
of course.
And there's a whole situation where the girl wants to work for the travel agency, and they're sitting in the restaurant, and they're like, the man may be the head, but the woman is the neck, and she can turn the man any way she wants. And so they have this conversation with the dad because they want the daughter to work for the travel agency, and they make him think that it was his idea for her to work at the travel agency. So I'm not saying to manipulate.
She said full disclaimer.
But you want to be able to almost make them think that it's their idea a little bit. Not so, it's going to be hard. But if you go in and say, "Mom, you can't cook, you can't clean, you can't use the bathroom," you're going to be met with a lot of defensiveness, a lot of, "Well, yes, I can. I raised you. I did a great job," blah, blah, and it's going to be a nightmare. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. So I think that if you take the My Big Fat Greek Wedding approach of let them kind of think it's their idea by asking open-ended questions. So, hey, I'm noticing this. Have you been noticing that recently? Oh, tell me what's been going on. I see it's a little messy here. Are you having some problems with that? And maybe if you start to ask those open-ended questions and not be so, accusatory, because I understand. It is very
it's hard. It's tough. That's why they're tough conversations. I think we've all been there when you're coming from a good place, but you have your own frustrations. I mean, I know I've been there.
100%. And again, it's like that switching gears. This is your parent. Right. You've been being parented your whole life, and now you kind of have to take on that role. It's really hard. It's really hard. This is really a little off topic, but somewhat related.
That's our favorite thing about the show.
I am using a lot of pop culture references, but Lena Dunham, who from the show The Girls, she made this comment that always kind of stuck with me is like, when you grow up, you kind of like think your parents right about everything. Mm-hmm. And when you become an adult is when you realize your parents not right about everything. And I think that's, and it's a very,
it's hard.
It's a tough
it is
to say like, oh my God, like they're not right.
No.
They are wrong. Like, deep down they're wrong. And like, but that's when you become an adult. And this is like adult 2.0 is like when you have to kind of start caring for them. So I think just like, I'm trying to think what I wrote, but like, asking like, what feels hardest around the house lately? Or is there anything that's very stressful for you? And just like, opening that dialogue up. And remember, if you keep those IADLs and ADLs, top of mind, I actually pulled up the sheet I made the other day. So the ADLs, just to circle back, are bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, so feeding yourself, walking/mobility, and then the transfer. So out of bed, out of a chair. Are you able to get out of the chair with assistance? Are you able to get out of bed with assistance? And the IADLs are like shopping, cooking, housekeeping, laundry, managing your medication, transportation, like we were talking about driving, paying bills and appointments. So, keeping those kind of as like your anchors, because that's, if you start to notice that they're having difficulty with their ADLs or IADLs, and to anchor the conversation with those in mind, then that's when those are the red flags to you. Hey, maybe it's time for a home health aide. Hey, maybe how are we going to pay for this? Can we afford to pay for this privately? And not only can we afford to pay for it privately, can we afford to pay for it privately long term? Or is this going to completely drain all of the wealth that my family has accumulated over the years? And if the answer, if you say, no, we're not able to privately pay fully, it's going to drain all of our resources, then Medicaid is a great option.
Well, you raised some, we got a good mix here.
Yeah.
Right? I'm one of the ones you'd be talking to, right?
I mean, in theory. In theory, Otto. I mean, I think Otto's in his own category.
Well, I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think, thank God, I'm able to see the fact that, yes, I am getting older. I'm not getting younger. I'm not getting old. I'm getting older.
Yeah.
All right?
That's right.
And I also understand, I make it clear with my children that, look, they know things that I don't know, but I know things you don't know.
That's
right?
true.
I didn't get stupid pills all of a sudden.
No.
I'm a big, as they know, I'm technical and scams and whatever.
Yeah.
And they'll tell me, oh, don't open that email. I said, I know all about that. We've had 80 people on this show about scams. Right? I know more than they know about it.
Yeah.
But, it's stupid, Dad. Don't open that email.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, there's situations like that.
Yes.
Of course.
But the flip side is you, me, or anybody in my category has to be realistic about the fact that the path that you're going down is not all of a sudden you're going to make the major leagues or anything. You're going way down into the minor leagues, all right? And it's a fact. So there's a real balance of being able to have honest conversation without being defensive on both sides.
Definitely.
So true.
Now, that's easier said than done because everybody's different. Some people are like that, period, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have, everybody's personality is different. So there are some people who are going to have their backup no matter how you phrase it. All right.
100. Listen, this is not a foolproof way or foolproof way of having the conversation, but I do always like to use that analogy for my big fat Greek wedding, because if you could really try to put the ball in their court and have them start to think that it's their idea, it makes it easier. Again, it's not a slam dunk.
No, but I think like your buzzlight about the open-ended question is, just so important. I mean, we have to, in Project Independence, it's because it's making it more of, an interactive process. It's not, so it's, instead of me saying like, you can't pick this up, you're having trouble cleaning, for them to recognize, like I am, it's a little difficult for me too. I mean, in my family, all we do is have conversations. I feel like we're in a constant loop of conversations.
Yes.
But I do, I think that is like the best best rule of thumb to have approach, any kind of difficult conversation.
Yeah.
With this is to.
But not
because-
everybody does
No,
it,
it's hard
and
because like I get it. It's easier said than done.
Right. And then I think like the aging loved one, has to give their child, which also much easier said than done, like the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
Like they're not
right.
coming from a bad place.
Right.
They're not.
Right, they love you.
They love you. They want to keep you safe. They want to keep you in the home. Again, much easier
a lot
said
of it
than
has
done.
to do with how you, as you pointed out, how you phrase it, how you say it.
Yeah.
Like I was in sales all my life, and how you say something, you could say the same sentence.
Yeah.
That really was crummy.
Yeah.
That was kind of crummy.
Oh, you're doing like a TikTok trend that's actually
I
going.
was just gonna say it is. It's
Yeah, how
actually
how
going around TikTok. I didn't know Otto was about to do it for us.
your voice and your inflection and how it comes out.
100%.
Right.
Absolutely. So it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
And I think when you have those difficult conversations, coming from a place of love and caring and, not coming from a place of, accusing and
I think it's like,
anger.
the fear of like, as you said, Jessica, too, is like just like that control piece. And that's something, all of our social workers and nurses at Project Independence are very aware of.
Yeah.
And even our mobility manager, when we talk about driving and stuff, because I do think, that's what the hardest part is that you feel like, I don't want to give up this independence. You're trying to control me, and especially if it's your kid, like forget about it.
Totally.
So I do think, that throw that right out the window.
Yeah.
But, because I've said this on the show before too, and my grandpa was, a difficult, tough Greek guy. And we would sit there with him and we would say, you have to fill out a will. We would have these conversations, my mom and I, with him. And, we said, like, you are keeping, this is your chance to be independent, to call the shots.
100%.
And I think, like, we were trying to get that across to him. Like, this is not anyone controlling you, because now you're in a place to say, I want this to happen. I want this, so you get to make those choices instead of not doing anything and someone else making them for you, So
Absolutely.
it's all these, tough things, and having these tough conversations.
Yeah.
Otto has been, like, an all-star with his family. I said, I wish all my relatives were like Otto, because you have those hard conversations. Nobody wants to have these, and I even know myself. Listen, I've been in Project Independence for a million years now and doing social work, but it's still hard for me when it comes to my own family. It's like, oh God, we're gonna have these like conversations about their wish. I don't want to think about that. It's tough.
I actually won at a event, like a will and a healthcare proxy, like free.
Oh.
Okay, and I was like, oh, no. I was like, I don't want to. I'm too young. I'm like, no. Is this the universe's way of telling me something? No, but I can say, I'm turning 36 in a month. Even at such a young age, it's really hard to even have that conversation.
Yeah.
To be faced, truthfully with your own mortality and what's going to happen.
Course.
It's really, it's dark stuff, but I think. I should practice what I preach.
No, I get it. No, but I think that's what I want all of our listeners to realize, that even people who are, quote unquote, in the business, it's when it comes to a personal thing, it's certainly tough, and it's like you kind of have to have these tools and reminders of how to navigate.
It's like a lot of things. I mean, you buy life insurance, you buy home insurance,
right.
a will.
Right.
And I think most of us kind of think none of this stuff ever happens.
No, we're invincible.
But I've unfortunately had personal experiences where it does happen.
Yeah.
And people die at a young age.
It's true.
Through some cause or another.
Totally.
And that's not what you wish.
No.
But if you don't think about it, it depends on your situation.
Yeah.
If you have a complicated situation, like somebody's been married before or whatever, you better have a will, because you're going to leave people a mess and a battle and a fight. And if that's what you want your legacy to be, go for it.
No. I know, like I said, I have to take my own advice, but I can really empathize with my clients and their journeys, because it is not easy to face this. It's very easy for me to give out this advice, but it is hard when it's your loved one or yourself, and I totally get it. Yeah.
Well, we all think that we're going to be here forever.
Nothing's bad's going to happen to us.
100 years from now, there's hardly anybody that's here now on this planet is going to be here.
If anyone is, it's you, Otto.
It is. I agree.
I'll be very old.
But it's true. Yeah.
But, on a brighter side, then the point being, okay, so that's the deal, all right? So
Yeah.
make the best of the deal while you have it.
Right.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
When you're in the driver's seat,
Yes,
make those
absolutely.
decisions and start to have, those conversations. Absolutely.
Yeah, and, people, I sometimes see people who, your entry level in life, they start out in such a bad position, and that's it, but they try to do what they can with it. They learn how to
Yeah.
write with their mouth and,
Yeah.
do all kinds of things that,
Yeah.
you couldn't believe people could do.
It's so true.
So attitude and how you confront handle
Yeah.
stuff,
It's true. And, to bring that, I'm just thinking, like, as we're talking, this loss of independence and, like, going on Medicaid. Now I kind of forgot my train of thought. But no, going on Medicaid. But Medicaid, I mentioned it briefly, but, like, I do really look at it as an asset protection,
Yeah, right.
just like there are a lot of other things that you could do to protect your assets. Going on Medicaid, if you really foresee that you're going to drain your resources, which I mentioned before, having that conversation and explaining that Medicaid is a tool to protect your hard-earned assets that you've accumulated throughout your life, that, like, mom, dad, you have amassed X amount of money. You do the math.
Yeah.
It's going to go like that. So let's really start to have that conversation.
I think Jessica gave us our golden nugget of the show. We love our golden nuggets every time we show, and I think Medicaid equals asset protection.
The problem,
but I do think a lot, and that's something that it's getting better, and we try to educate people on this show, especially about Medicaid, because I think there's still a lot of people out there who hear that word and they're like, oh no,
it's
that's
not for me. It's true.
Yeah, and
I get
really,
that a lot.
I really do, and I think, like, the more and framing it the way that you did, and that's why it's so important to have these kind of conversations, to do that.
Yeah.
Because so many people could benefit, from us, doing that and protecting
Yes.
yourself and planning, and not
Yes.
just hearing that word and assuming, like, oh, that's not
Right.
for me.
Well, let's talk now. Okay, I made my mind up. I want to talk to you. All right? Do you do things like a consultation?
Yes.
Okay.
Free consultation. We come to your home. You can come to us, or we will come to your home. We come to the rehabs. We do the consultations there. Like I said, the first phone call with us, I call it the triage phone call, because I think when people call us and they're in a situation, they want answers now. They don't really want to wait to schedule a call.
Right.
They want the answers now. They've clearly made this decision. They're thinking about making the decision. It's not definitive. So, like I said, the first call with us is a consult, a free consult. We have follow-up calls also that are free, because we know how important this decision is. And at that phone call, we typically talk about which Medicaid pathway to go down, whether it is a chronic application, a nursing home, which, again, not the goal. If it is truly an immediate needs Medicaid application, or if it is a community traditional Medicaid application, we explain all of that. And then we do talk about, as I call it, the buckets, the income and the asset buckets. What does the income look like? You don't have to give me exact numbers, but roughly what's the income looking like? What are the assets looking like? The beauty of community Medicaid is, on immediate needs Medicaid, is there's only a 30-day financial look back. So if you're not eligible today, we could speak to you about how to become eligible for the next billing cycle.
That's what I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you. As a result of that consultation, would you say, yes, you could qualify, or no, you can't qualify?
We tell them, we'll say right now you don't have, you're over-resourced, you have too much money, but there are a few things that you can do to make yourself eligible. One is pre-planning your funeral, which, again, going back to difficult conversations, not something anyone really wants to talk about, but that is one way that you could spend down some of your money. If, you want to transfer it to somebody, you can transfer it to, if you have power of attorney with gifting. I'm not a lawyer, so definitely consult with a lawyer. But, there are ways. And then we talk about the pooled income trust, if that's something that you would need, if you're over the income bucket. as I say. I sometimes even draw it out for clients. I'll literally draw 2 buckets. I'll show them
Yeah,
that
that's great.
based on your income, you're over the bucket. So where is it going to spill into? It's going to spill into this pooled income trust. And some people hate the idea of the pooled income trust too. And I had a client ask me, they're like, what would you do if it was your mom? And I said, I'm like, of course I would do the pooled income trust. I don't work for a pool trust company. I don't get anything out of it. But it is an incredible tool, and not every state has it, because Medicaid is a federal program, but state run. Not every, state has it. This is an incredible way that you can keep your income. But again, it's the loss of control.
Now, we are out of time, but I want to know, give your phone number, your contact number quickly so we have that in case anyone wants to get in touch with you.
My phone number is 917-826-0484, and that is my direct cell. That's another thing about us. We use our direct cell phones. You can call or text us at any time.
Awesome.
Like I said, we're a boutique firm. We do a lot of the hand-holding. We're an extension of your family through this Medicaid application process.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. We could talk to you for so long.
Oh my gosh, same.
Jessica Masef, Senior Advisor Solutions. Such great information. You're listening to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio.